Chris Carter here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Joined today by Brian Batko. We're going to be talking about the Steelers and just how much liberty will Justin Fields get in this offense. He got high praises from Arthur Smith Thursday, high praises from Mike Tomlin Tuesday, but will that lead to any differences in how the offense is run? That, our pick six of the top 6 games outside of the Steelers to look at this weekend, and our final look at Steelers-Cowboys, all here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Let's get into it.
You are now listening to the North Shore Drive Podcast, a show on all things Pittsburgh sports from the writers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, hosted by Christopher Carter.
Hello and welcome to the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm your host, Chris Carter, joined today by one of our great Steelers beat writers, Brian Batko. And as always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes of the North Shore Drive podcast, as well as the daily content that comes out from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, like Chipped Ham and Football, Brian Batko's special Tuesday show that comes out here on those same podcasting apps and on YouTube. Thanks again for everyone for tuning in.
Got my Chipped Ham and Football shirt on, Chris.
You have a Chipped Ham and Football shirt? Where's mine?
I'll see what I can do. I'll talk to the plug.
Yeah, give me a 2X. Anyways, but there's Chipped Ham and Football shirts, everybody. We need some of those. But this show, as always, is brought to you by Edgar Snyder Associates. Whether you're injured in a car accident or hurt on the job, Edgar Snyder Associates has helped injury victims for over 40 years recover more than $2 billion on their behalf. If you or a loved one have been seriously injured in an accident, call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit www.edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. All right, Brian. Let's talk about some Justin Fields real quick, because as Ray Fittipaldo wrote for yesterday, he's been getting some high praises from his coaches. Tuesday, Mike Tomlin seemed to be higher on Justin Fields than he has been on any Steelers quarterback that I've heard him talk about. And then that was kind of buttressed by Arthur Smith, who said, quote, in the second half, it was cool to watch as a coach and you know, as a play caller, when he was in that kind of a flow, he damn near took that game over, and it didn't matter what I called. You just felt it rolling. That's a pretty good endorsement from your offensive coordinator here. But Brian, when we talked to him about audibles and what he did, he kind of talked about, oh, you can't be like the Cheesecake Factory menu and all this other stuff. But then Justin Fields eventually said, like, hey, you know, I do have certain checks at the line of scrimmage, but if it's a run play, I can't switch out of that. And I thought that was a very interesting, like, well, wait a second. What, isn't that half the point of having the audibles, is to get out of situations when the other team is just perfectly lined up to take on what you're doing? What's your assessment of how what they've limited Justin Fields to be able to do in this offense, and when, if ever, they'll get to let him open it up a little bit more?
Yeah, Chris, honestly, this is starting to give me some flashbacks to the Matt Canada, Kenny Pickett era of what is the young quarterback given the freedom to do. I guess even before that, the Ben Roethlisberger, Matt Canada pairing, when Ben was in his last year, Canada was in his first year of their respective jobs at that time. And it seemed like it was a constant controversy. That might be too strong a word, but it was a constant topic week in and week out. And it was hard to ever really get a straight answer from guys. And I don't know that we're really getting straight answers from these two in this sense, because I think they're both kind of sensitive to the idea of, you don't want to give too much away, talking to the media. There's certain things that, I guess if I use a Tomlinism, they don't want to give us all the ingredients to the hot dog, not because we won't like it, but because they just don't want to disclose, peel the curtain back on the entire operation. And that's, the Steelers, I'd say, are not always all that transparent. I mean, we've never really gotten a lot of clarity on the Mike Tomlin, Terrell Austin dynamic, at least publicly, when those guys are asked about it, calling the defensive plays out and the challenges, who's in charge of the reviews in the booth. Mike Tomlin just straight up said he wasn't going to talk specifics about that last year when he was asked. So I don't make too much of what Justin Fields said after practice Friday. I mean, I have the quote up right here. He says it depends on the play call. If we have a run play, then we're going to stick with that play call. One thing I'm not going to do, our offense doesn't roll like that. I put my full trust in Arthur to get us in the right play at the right time. So whatever he calls, I'm going to roll with. There's some plays I can check into a different play versus a different coverage or a certain look. But most of our run plays, there's some cans on it, depending on what look we get. Meaning, you see a quarterback run up, he's yelling can, probably checking off to a different play. But yeah, he said it really just depends on the play calls. So I think things are okay. But yeah, that's a big narrative right now, is how much freedom does Justin Fields have? Are the Steelers waiting too long to kind of pull back the reins on him? Not necessarily in a sense of identifying what he's seeing at the line and making changes, but more of just the plays that Arthur Smith's calling, what he's dialing up from the start of the game. Is it like they're making him ride with training wheels on until it's time to catch the mailman down the street? So, I mean, that's always going to be something that gets asked when you have a tale of two halves like they did Sunday in Indy. I think I put more stock into the way that Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith are talking about Justin Fields and his performance through 4 weeks. I feel like they're pretty bullish on him. I feel like they're pretty confident. And given the sort of awkward dynamic with Russell Wilson, I don't think they would have any reason to manufacture that faith in Justin Fields unless they truly felt that way.
Agreed. I don't think they're blowing smoke here. I think that this is real praise. And also, like, this has been Mike Tomlin. Like, he hasn't given much praise when guys have done things. He'll be like when Kenny Pickett would lead his like fourth comeback drive. And again, not saying that Kenny Pickett was playing well, but when we were asking what does he do there, he would never like, he'd be like, yeah, I guess that's what he's supposed to do though. But it would be nice to get with like, but that's Mike Tomlin. Like he has a way about going about himself that doesn't heap too much praise on his own guys.
The one thing I think about the most was when they were going through the state of quarterbacks in flux in 2019, and asked about Duck Hodges, he just said he didn't kill us.
Right.
That sort of became his mantra for him that year.
And that's funny that you bring that up because that's very accurate. That's a very good representation of how he's handled this situation. But I think this could be a huge part of this matchup that they got with the Cowboys here, Brian. And I want your thoughts on this. The Cowboys have one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL. But you know who also had one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL? The Indianapolis Colts. You know what they did about that? They run blitzed the heck out of the Steelers, and the Steelers didn't switch out of it early enough, and that led to them, their offense being stymied until they started throwing the ball a little bit more. So for me, Brian, I'm looking at this. If Justin Fields can't, can or check into a pass play, at least a quick pass play of some sort, in a run play where they've called it, they get to the line, and all of a sudden you see that safety creeping up. That's something else that Justin Fields said too. He said, we have to be better about getting to the line early enough so we can force their tells to happen. And that is a real thing. You want to get to the line early enough because then, you're not seeing the safety creeping up with 4 seconds left on the clock. You're seeing him creep up with 20 seconds on the clock. 15 seconds on the clock, and now you're like, okay, there's something there. Now let's pay attention to that. Let's call out an adjustment here. But I think a big part of this game is going to be if the Cowboys sell out to stop the run, which I think they will because they're missing two of their top guys up front, and it would just make sense to be like, hey, you're going to beat us with the air. We're going to have you try to throw this ball and not play the way that you want to play. The Steelers have to be prepared to counter that in this game.
It's actually kind of similar to the situation last week, whereas the Colts were very bad statistically against the run for the first, at that point, 3 games. But in their most recent game, they'd really stepped it up with Gus Bradley as their defensive coordinator. And then we saw that carry over to what they did against the Steelers. Some people tune out of Mike Tomlin's weekly Tuesday pressers, but he pretty much called that one last week that, Gus Bradley was doing some things schematically to stop the bleeding against the run, and the Steelers clearly recognized it. But to your point, Chris, and Arthur Smith brought this up, admitted this as well Thursday. They just didn't really make the adjustment until kind of late in that first half, and obviously Cordero Patterson was in there at the time instead of Najee Harris. So how much of it was an X's and O's adjustment versus just a personnel adjustment that broke in their favor? We've talked plenty about the running back, what's working and what isn't with those two guys this week. And it's probably a moot point if Cordero Patterson isn't going to play. He did not practice Wednesday or Thursday. But getting back around to what I was saying, the Cowboys actually did stymie the Giants running game last Thursday night. They've had a long week now to sort of start preparing for the Steelers. Surprisingly few amount of complaints from Steelers fans that they're facing a Cowboys team with 10 days rest. Come on, guys, step it up. I know you can have a little bit more resentment toward the NFL for this scheduling quirk here in week 5. We need some more of that. Less gripes about the holds, more about the scheduling. But no, seriously, the Cowboys did shut down Devin Singletary, who doesn't really strike too much fear in you, but he's a decent running back in the NFL. So maybe they've figured out something. Maybe they are, like you said, Chris, going to just try to overcompensate in that area and make Justin Fields beat them. And that's, kind of the ongoing discourse with this Steelers quarterback conundrum right now is what does he have to do to earn the quarterback one job outright, regardless of when Russell Wilson is healthy and ready to go. To me, it's one of two things. Either complete a game-winning drive like he nearly did in Indy, or just play a full 60 minutes and be really sharp and on it from start to finish where you don't even have to lead a 2-minute to win the game. So, we haven't seen either one of those yet from Fields. Perhaps this will be the week.
Maybe. We'll talk more about this matchup in a bit here on the North Shore Drive podcast, but we got to get to our pick 6, picking the top 6 games that we see happening this weekend. All that here on the North Shore Drive podcast on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Brian Batko. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder Associates. If you're injured in an accident, you're probably wondering what's next. Well, for over 40 years, Edgar Snyder Associates has helped injury victims answer that question, whether it's gathering evidence, collecting medical records, or dealing with the insurance companies. Edgar Snyder Associates has helped over 75,000 people handle what's next. Call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit www.edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. The show is also brought to you by SmartSide. Here's a message from our friends at SmartSide.
Between beauty and durability, making your neighbors jealous has never been easier. Introducing LP SmartSide Expert Finish Trim and Siding. Now in brushed, smooth texture. Available in 16 versatile colors, LP SmartSide Expert Finish products help create timeless designs and beautiful, longer-lasting dream homes. That's the beauty of brushed smooth.
Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Chris Carter, Brian Batko. Brian, it's time to get to our picks here in the Pick 6 that we do every Friday heading into the weekend. And I got to say, I'm going to lead off with this, Brian. It's an AFC North showdown. I didn't think this was allowed. I thought they were all supposed to be playing each other at the end of the season when Hard Knocks is there. Why are they denying Hard Knocks this great access of Ravens at Bengals, where the Ravens are 2.5-point favorites on the road? This is madness, Brian.
Well, the stakes will be higher later in the season once HBO is tailing the AFC North everywhere they go. But yeah, certainly this is it's a great one for this week. Two teams who know each other very well. One team who wants to keep it rolling in the Ravens, another team who just kind of wants to get back to level a little bit in the Bengals after they got their first win last week. I know you were doubting them, Chris. I did not.
I was.
But I am not going to pick the Bengals to win again. I think the Ravens are hitting their stride right now, and the Bengals are going to dig themselves into an even little deeper hole at home. It just seems like defensively, Lou Anarumo can't quite get it straightened out this year due to all the issues they're having with the Jimmies and Joes, not necessarily the X's and O's.
Yeah, the Bengals defense is garbage, and Derrick Henry.
That's a nicer way. That's a simpler way to put it.
Yeah. You went all the way around to say all this other stuff. Jimmy's and Joe's. I don't care about that. They're bad. I'm just gonna say it like that. They still got a bad offense. They get some bad dudes on offense. Michael Jackson bad. Not like actual bad. But this is gonna come down to the Ravens. Look at what Derrick Henry just did to the Bills. Now envision that to the that's what's going to happen. I don't care about your 2.5 points. Ravens are winning this one. Let's go to the other AFC North team that's playing at 1:00, and that's the Cleveland Browns. They are 3-point dogs on the road to the Washington Commanders, which if you had told me that at the start of the season, I'd have been like, what are you smoking? Why would you do that? But the Commanders are playing pretty well right now. They're one of the top offenses in the NFL. They're 3-1 on top of the NFC East. Who saw that coming? Now, granted, rookie quarterbacks, things, it can be very roller coastery, but I'm taking the Commanders, man. I believe in what they're doing. I don't believe in what the Browns are doing. They're on the road. I think this is a chance for the Commanders to further assert their early season dominance that they've had, and maybe pick up some games on people in the NFC East. What say you?
I could see that, but I'm going to go the other way. You mentioned the roller coaster for rookie quarterbacks. I mean, love what Jaden Daniels is doing. I think he's going to be he's already really good. I think he is really good. I'm not going to say going to be. I think he is really good, but it's not just going to be smooth sailing from start to finish for a rookie in this league, even one who's experienced and talented as he is. Feels like the Bengals just need a get right week here. Maybe they do it in a spot where nobody's expecting them to, because Lord knows it's been rough enough for them over the last couple weeks. So I just think they cook one up here. Kevin Stefanski, Jim Schwartz go on the road, steal one in DC. Well, technically Landover, Virginia.
Let's move on to some other games here.
Landover, Maryland? Yeah, Landover, Maryland. My bad, Maryland.
Look at you messing up the DMV area. But let's get into some of these other games in our pick six that don't involve the AFC North. This is going to be an interesting game. First of all, Brian, yay or nay on morning games when you don't have to cover them?
Love it. I love having something on in the morning that I can watch while I'm getting ready to head out to the Steelers game, or if I'm on the road somewhere in a hotel, gives me something to check out. I'd take it every week, honestly.
I'm right with you. They're actually like morning football when I don't have to work it. But Jets at Vikings is your Sunday morning game this week. The Vikings are 2.5-point favorites. The Jets are supposedly in the running to get Devontae Adams, but you know who has a pretty good wide receiver duo already? That's this Vikings team. The Vikings, it's not just the fact that they are undefeated in 4-0 right now. If you look at overall rankings, like on both sides of the ball, the Vikings have the number 4 scoring defense, and right now they also have the number 4 scoring offense. Give me the Vikings. I think that they're going to control this game from start to finish, and it's not going to be that close.
Oh, I'm going to disagree with you again here, Chris. I'm taking the Jets in an upset here. I don't love rolling with Nathaniel Hackett right now. It seems like Jets offense is kind of a mess, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that maybe Aaron Rodgers just sort of takes control when needed or if needed this week, and maybe he finds some cracks in that Brian Flores defense that the Packers did manage to come back on last week, even though they didn't finish the job. So I said it last week. I'll say it again. I feel like Sam Darnold's going to turn back into a pumpkin as we get closer to Halloween. I will go with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, sending the Vikings to their first loss in Minnesota, no less.
The Bills at the Texans. Bills are 1.5-point favorites on the road here. Bills got dismantled this week by the Ravens for everyone to see. But the Texans, they barely eked out a win against the Jaguars, albeit a division rival there. I'm taking the Bills here, Brian, because I think that they're a good team. They played some really good football. They've been one of the best offenses in the NFL. But, man, I felt like at the start of the year, the Houston Texans were going to come out guns a-blazing. I mean, they're 3-1, so it's hard to really,
but they're like a quiet 3-1. They're like a boring 3-1. They're just kind of like floating along here.
I think right now, offensively, they are averaging 1 more point per game than the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, like, that I did not see coming.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on this one, Chris. I think the Bills bounced back
there we go.
From taking one on the chin against the Ravens. I still think the Bills are playing pretty good ball, and Josh Allen on the road in a dome, it should be tough to stop down there in Houston in the Stephon Diggs Bowl. So I kind of feel like this is one of those games where Josh Allen and Buffalo want to stick it to him a little bit more than he wants to stick it to them.
Yeah, listen, they kind of have stuck it to him. They've talked about addition by subtraction, so that's something there.
Yeah, but now you got to do it on the field. Now you got to back it up against
they
his
do.
team.
They do got to back it because I feel like
the Texas defenders they don't care about that. They don't Trayvon Diggs in their secondary. He's going to be in Pittsburgh Sunday night. So yeah, give me Buffalo.
We're going to the AFC West here, talking about a team the Steelers have beaten and a team the Steelers still have to play. That's the Broncos at home hosting the Raiders. The Broncos are 2.5-point favorites. Brian, I'll watch you, but I'm actually kind of impressed by how the Broncos have played in the 2 weeks since they played the Steelers. They beat up on the Buccaneers in impressive fashion, and then they eked out a 10-9 win last week on the road at the Jets, both of those being road contests. So, I mean, if you look at their resume right now, they lost by 6 points to the Seahawks, who I think look like a good team, and they lost by 7 points to the Steelers, who are on top of the AFC North. Give me the Broncos. I think they're going to win this game. And could the Broncos actually be better than we gave them credit for? I thought they were going to be like picking in the top 5 this year.
Yeah, and that still might happen just because of how competitive the AFC is. And, I think they're, the rest of their road, they're going to take some lumps. But, yeah, I mean, they, especially defensively, they're better than we thought. I mean, as we chat right now, Thursday night, Bucs are kind of putting on a clinic in the first half against the Falcons, and Denver made them look useless, a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, they've got some better dudes up front than certainly I realized coming into this season. Sort of some underrated, no-name type of guys in that front 7, I guess. But yeah, I think the Broncos they're going to lay waste to the Raiders in this one. Especially a Raiders team that's going through so many distractions right now.
That's the other thing I'm looking at too. Like this Raiders team, Devontae Adams, that thing's hanging over their head. Antonio Pierce keeps having to answer questions every day about it. That's going to
they might not score.
Ooh, shutout. Now that's an interesting prediction there. All right, Brian. All right, let's go to the last game of our pick 6 here. It's Saints at Chiefs, potentially game of the week here for a lot of people. Though the Chiefs are 5.5-point favorites in this game. And some people might be saying, well, wait a minute, it's just the Saints. What do you care? Well, the Saints have actually not been terrible this year. They're 2-2 to start the season. They are the number 1 scoring team in the NFL right now, averaging 31.8 points per game, well above the Chiefs, who aren't even in the top 10 right now. They're averaging 23 points per game. I also think it's going to be interesting to see how these two defenses clash because they're right next to each other. The Chiefs are giving up 18 points per game. The Chiefs are giving up 18 points a game, and the Saints are giving up 17.5 points per game. So they're two of the better defenses as well in the NFL. Brian, how do you see this shaking out?
Yeah, I was a year early thinking the Saints would, be a feisty team. I think I picked them to make the playoffs last year, and we know how that went. But now all of a sudden, they've got Clint Kubiak in there calling the shots offensively. Seems like that was a great hire for them this offseason. I think maybe they can do a little bit of damage in the NFC this year. But even with everything going on with the Chiefs, losing Rashee Rice last week, who'd become their go-to receiver, I still think that at home, primetime game at Arrowhead against old foe Derek Carr, who does probably know where some of the bodies are buried facing the Chiefs in this defense. I still think that they get a dub in this one. And Juju Smith-Schuster, I guess he's going to be thrust into a larger role now, right? With no Rice. He is a man, Chris, who absolutely needs to get some comeuppance against the New Orleans Saints. We all remember the fumble at the end of that game in 2018 when he was playing with the Steelers, of course, that effectively ended an era of Steelers football. And then I just looked it up last year. With the Patriots, he played the Saints, and they lost 34-0. So
dang.
He had 3 catches for 6 yards. Juju needs to just send the Saints home. New Orleans set packing. He needs this one individually.
I look at the Chiefs here. I like them too. I think the receiver that's going to really blow up after this whole thing is Xavier Worthy. I thought
you were going to say Sky Moore. Pittsburgh.
I mean, hey, local guy, Shady Side Academy dude, but I'm saying Xavier Worthy. They drafted that man high for a reason. He's already made some plays, but I think that they're going to find a way to get his speed as a factor into this game, and into this whole season. He might go off, but I like the Chiefs here. Granted, if you're a betting person here, I do like the Saints to cover. I think this will go down to the wire and be a 3-point game.
I agree with you there, Chris. I think the 5-point spread I'm seeing as of Thursday night is a little steep because I think it is going to be a good one.
All right, we'll get into Steelers-Cowboys in a minute here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Brian Batko. But first, I want to remind you, this show is brought to you also by Savinas, Kane, and Gallucci. They're your mesothelioma and asbestos lawyers with over 85 years of experience. Call them today for a free consultation. That is Savinas, Kane, and Galucci. This show is also brought to you by Moon Township Honda, where you can get your new Honda vehicle at 5802 University Boulevard in Moon Township, PA, or go to their website, moonhonda.com. Here's a message from our friends at Moon Township Honda.
To build the Honda CR-V Hybrid, we took everything you love about the CR-V and kicked it up a notch with greater power for a CR-V unlike any before. Adventure confidently with Honda, car and driver's most awarded brand in 10 Best history. The CR-V and CR-V Hybrid, part of the Honda line of rugged vehicles. Visit your local Honda dealer where new vehicles are arriving daily. Buy online or reserve from select Honda dealers.
Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Chris Carter, Brian Batko. Brian, let's talk about Steelers-Cowboys a little bit closer now.
I was going to say, Pittsburgh's own Justin Watson also still plays for the Chiefs, wide receiver.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So he should be playing more now, too. Maybe the Chiefs are going to cover 5 points. Patrick Mahomes, some dogs to throw to.
Fueled by the talent that comes only out of Western Pennsylvania.
Hashtag Whitfield. And Juju as an honorary Whitfield product.
Let's talk about this matchup though. Cowboys come into this game. They have a laundry list or a CVS receipt of injuries. You think the Steelers are hurt up? These guys are hurt up. Even beyond DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, they're dealing with injuries at every level of their defense. Their offense is banged up. This is a team that has been tested already about where they can put guys. I know the Steelers are dealing with their own things here, but Brian, we said that last week about the Colts. They don't have as many injuries as these guys do, and I think that the star power that the Cowboys are missing is not the case for the Colts. But still, is there a way? Do you think that the Steelers can capitalize on this and get their run going this week, or do you think this is that they're walking into another Colts type of trap if they use the same approach that they have been?
No, I think the way that they were able to get it untracked a little bit at times before the game script got away from them in Indy is encouraging. And I just think structurally, the Cowboys missing the just dominant players in their front four, it's going to be a real problem for them. Now, Mozzie Smith, their defensive tackle, second-year guy out of Michigan, first-round pick, he played well against the Giants. He was a big reason why they were able to put the foot down and stop the run in that one. Tough matchup for Zach Frazier in week 5 here, dealing with Mozzie Smith. DeMarvion Overshone, talked to Jory Epstein of Yahoo Sports about him a lot on Chipped Him and Football Tuesday. He's really been all over the field, kind of having a little bit of a coming out party for himself here. And I think it's year 2 for him as well. So, they've still got a couple pieces, but no, Chris, I think Najee Harris, just from talking to him Thursday, he sounded motivated. He just sounded like a guy who is ready for a bounce back game. That was arguably his worst game in the NFL in Indy. I think he comes back really strong and runs over some guys, and Arthur Smith has a few more answers schematically to get those holes open. And let's not discount that Isaac Seumalo probably going to be back for this one at left guard as well.
I think that's a huge factor here. Isaac Seumalo much better than I think people might remember, and I think he'll quickly make that known in this game should he play and be on schedule to do so. There, major factor there. Give me another X factor in this game before we get to our final predictions. Another factor that you're saying, hey, I'm circling this. Steelers got to do this and they win, or like this will be the controlling factor that gets them their win.
Yeah, I think containing CeeDee Lamb is huge for them. I think it's been a huge emphasis this week in practice. I think he's going to be somebody who gets even more targets than usual from Dak Prescott with no Brandon Cooks out there for Dallas. So that's one that certainly jumps out to me. Michael Pittman was pretty prolific last week against the Steelers. I also think it's fascinating that if Joey Porter doesn't travel with CeeDee Lamb, which I don't think he's going to, he's probably going to get some matchups against Beanie Bishop in the slot. That would probably make you think the Steelers aren't going to want to bet on that man-to-man, situation. If it's Dante Jackson on the other side, We'll see what happens there. It could work in the Steelers' favor, too, if Dak Prescott is sort of forcing things to number 88. Can Minkah Fitzpatrick finally come up with a pick if it goes to Lamb down the middle of the field and he's in the place to be. So he's really the only Dallas skill position player who scares me. I mean, Jake Ferguson's a decent tight end, but, as long as you don't have any coverage busts and leave that guy wide open, which could happen, you should be all right on that front. And then the other thing, I did want to mention special teams too, Chris, as a factor in this one. Not just the kickers, who Chris Boswell and Brandon Aubrey.
They're two of the best.
They're two of the best right now. If the Pro Bowl were tomorrow, those two guys are probably kicking for their respective sides, if they even still have kickers in the Pro Bowl. I don't know. Don't ask me. But Aubrey has a 65-yarder made this season, which is just ridiculous. And we know Chris Boswell is off to as good a start as he's ever had. So you got to whoever misses one out of those two, or if one of those guys gets a chance to drill a long one, be a weapon, or there's a game-winning scenario, both teams are going to feel good about their kicker. And the Dallas Cowboys also have Kevontae Turpin as their punt returner. Pull up his highlights for a good time. I mean, he worked his way up to the NFL after being in, I think it was the USFL or XFL, one of those.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Yeah, I mean, he's a small, tiny guy. He's listed at 5'9", but he's got that Calvin Austin speed, quickness, shiftiness. He's the only player in the NFL with a punt return touchdown so far this year. Corliss Waitman, keep it to the sidelines, buddy. If you don't, your coverage unit is not going to have a fun day.
You touched on something that I think is going to be important this week, too, and it's not having the blown coverages. Both the touchdowns the Steelers surrendered through the air to the Colts came on blown coverage plays, and Terrell Austin kind of acknowledged that on Thursday when we talked to him. I think a big part of this game is going to be the chess match, not just where CeeDee Lamb lines up, but how they're trying to use him to get him open, but also how he could be setting up other things. The Steelers cannot afford mental lapses where they expose just whole parts of the field in key passing downs. They got to be on their P's and Q's there. They do that. I think they give themselves a really solid edge because this rushing offense has not taken off this year for the Cowboys. Granted, Ezekiel Elliott certainly came into Pittsburgh and was a problem for them with the Patriots last year. So they can't exactly sleep on that either. But I think if you limit the passing that they like to do in the middle part of the field, you make sure that CeeDee Lamb is getting bumped at the line of scrimmage and then getting a second defender coming over the top to help. I do think that you create more and more turnover opportunity situations, which they actually have to capitalize on this week, unlike the two interceptions they missed last week and not picking up a fumble that they had right in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, Dak Prescott already likes to get rid of the ball pretty quickly. And, with TJ Watt bearing down on him on this one, that's going to be even more paramount. So for the Steelers, as Mike Tomlin always likes to say, don't get beat to the flat. That's going to be a major emphasis in this one as well. Dallas, one of these weeks, I feel like they're going to get some production out of their RB3, Deuce Vaughn, little guy out of Kansas State. It's like 5'6", but he can make you miss in a phone booth, as they say. So, you got to take away those yak opportunities for Dak in a game that he's even down an additional receiver in Cooks, whereas we already know that the Cowboys came into this season sort of sitting on their hands as far as the weapons and the playmakers at Dak's disposal.
All right. With all that being said, Brian, let's get to this game. Give me how you think this game goes, where the turning point is, and your final score prediction for how this finishes.
Yeah, I think both offenses are going to have some success in this one, Chris. I mean, both defenses are banged up. The Steelers still reeling a little bit from what Indy did. I would have to think Dallas's coaches are trying to look at some of those flaws and exploit them themselves. CeeDee Lamb is, stopping him easier said than done. But at the end of the day, I think too much injury to overcome on the Cowboys side. And I think that really plays into the hands of a Steelers offense that got rolling in the second half, albeit against a Colts defense that was just trying to sort of preserve the lead and hang on to that one. All that said, I'm going to go Steelers 29, Colts 27 in a fairly high-scoring game Sunday night on the North Shore.
back-to-back weeks of giving up 27 points to the Steelers defense there. And you live dangerously, sir. I too think
Turpin, could be a special teams type, could be a Trayvon Diggs pick 6 if Justin Fields
could be
throws it anywhere near the 2021 NFL interceptions leader.
I look at the Steelers and I see, like you say, there's a lot of injuries on the table that the Cowboys have to deal with. There's a lot of things they're going through. I think the Steelers, this is their get right week. I think that, there's a push to kind of, hey, let's make sure that was a one week blip last week against the Colts. I think the turning point comes because Tyler Guyton is playing offensive tackle for them. And if the Steelers can send blitzes that confuse him on that side, while keeping him occupied and keeping the team having to worry about that side, that's going to allow TJ Watt to get more one-on-ones. And I think after being, shut out last week from getting to the quarterback, I think this week he makes up for that in spades. One of those is a turnover that gets the Steelers the ball back in a short field, and then that lets them put it away. I see them winning this game 27-17 Steelers.
All right, we shall see. Tyler Guyton has to deal with, I guess, I don't know if it'll be Nick Herbig or DeMarvin Leal, but they've got to get more pressure than they did against the Colts because Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson looked like he was headed for a pretty big day out there as well.
He did. But we'll get into this matchup more and more throughout the week. Brian and our team are at the Steelers facility Friday, so do check out all the written work there, and then we will have you. We'll keep you up to date all things here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Yeah, keep an eye on that injury report Friday. Larry Ogunjobi was new on there Thursday afternoon. So with what I think they said it was a groin. So that's always
that's always bad.
That's tricky. You don't want to see that on a Thursday, a few days before a game. So we'll have an update on that for sure.
Absolutely. We'll keep you updated on all things Steelers here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Brian Batko. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Reminder, the show is every Monday, Wednesday, Friday on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of those Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes, as well as the daily content that comes out from all of our sports writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We'll see you again Sunday night after the game with our post-game recap of Steelers-Cowboys. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all the sports coverage from the Post-Gazette that we have to offer, visit post-gazette.com.